Good evening and welcome to this edition of KTN Prime. I'm Michael Oyer.
And I am Anki Gute. Let's straight off take a look at our top stories this evening. Kenyan cases move closer to trial as ICC names judges.
Parliament is oversight the legislature, the executive. But it must also allow space for the executive to function.
We have summoning powers under the Powers and the Privileges Act. And in those summoning powers, we can summon anybody and everybody.
MPs clash with executive over committee summons. Sleepy Turkana township rattled by oil discovery. And still on KTN Prime, Nicholas Biwott in a cat-and-mouse chase with journalists.
Welcome. The Kenyan cases at the ICC appear set to begin. The ICC president has appointed a three-judge bench that will hear and determine the trial case against Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto, Francis Mudhaura and Joshua Sang.
The three judges are from Belgium, Japan and Nigeria. Aaron Ochieng reports.
Of four accused Kenyans now rests with the decision by judges Christine van de Wijngaard from Belgium, Kuniko Ozaki from Japan, and Nigerian Chile Obeo Osaji. The three judges who assigned the Kenyan cases by ICC President Sang Hun Song. Judge Kuniko Ozaki from Japan was an international human rights professor before she was appointed ICC judge in 2009. Judge van der Wijngaard is a criminal law expert, and before joining ICC in 2009, she was a judge at the Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. Canadian-educated Chile Eboy Osaji has been a legal advisor to the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights before he was elected judge of ICC on the 11th of this month. The Kenyan case will be the first for the Nigerian. Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto, Francis Mudhaura and Joshua Sang will now appear before the three-judge bench, with prosecutor Fatou Bensouda seeking to convince the judges to find them guilty. They are accused of crimes against humanity committed in Kenya after the 2007 elections, where 1,500 persons were killed and close to 500,000 persons displaced. Aaron Ochieng, KTN Prime.
The blame game between the executive and the legislature over the slow pace of the implementation of the Constitution today played out at a meeting convened to take stock of the gains brought about by the new Constitution.
Prime Minister Raila Odinga defended the executive over accusations of delaying crucial constitution bills. The Prime Minister accused MPs of derailing drafting of bills by constantly summoning ministers to appear before various parliamentary committees. Deputy Speaker Farah Maalim, in defense of the legislature, asked the executive to stop making excuses and do their job.
Members of Parliament convened at a Nairobi hotel for a two-day conference to deliberate on fast-tracking the Constitution implementation process, a forum opened by Prime Minister Raila Odinga. With the executive already on MPs' bad books for delaying crucial bills, the meeting quickly turned into a contest of might between the two arms of government.
Ministers must appear. If they must appear, they have to appear before Parliament. But there must also be space so that the executive can also do its business.
We have summoning powers under the Powers and the Privileges Act. And in those summoning powers, we can summon anybody and everybody.
Government has severally locked horns with Parliament over delayed bills tabled in Parliament for debate. The National Assembly has on more than one occasion been forced to extend its sittings to beat tight constitutional deadlines of pending bills, blaming Cabinet for withholding the bills.
Parliament is oversight the legislature, the executive. But it must also allow space for the executive to function. The executive has to prepare the legislation to send to Parliament. And we need to have time to do that.
You will have your time to do your pieces of legislations, but at the same time, we will keep you on your feet.
Usually, line ministries draft the bills which are channeled to the Constitution Implementation Commission, which in consultation with the Attorney General's office clean up the bills. The bills are then forwarded to the Cabinet Subcommittee before submission to Cabinet for approval. The bills are then tabled in Parliament for debate after publication by the Attorney General's office.
And in a big cabinet that you want to have, the bills must go through cabinet committees for exhaustive discussions before they're taken to the cabinet.
So far, the 10th Parliament has approved 25 bills enacted into law within their constitutional deadlines. Among them are 3 county government laws, but President Mwai Kibaki refused to assent the County Government Bill 2011, stating that it undermines restructuring of provincial administration. Despite the executive stating that Parliament is not giving it space, the National Assembly says it will not relent in its oversight role. Sam Ogina, KTN, Nairobi.
Well, off the back of that story, we asked tonight's big question. Do you think the legislature is usurping the powers of the executive?
Please do send your comments, beginning with a yes or no, to our SMS number. It's 8040. We will sample some of your comments at the end of this live newscast. Well, the Kenya National Union of Teachers, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Teachers and the Kenya Secondary Schools Head Teachers Association have all been accused of rejecting the proposed education system because of vested interests. NUT and other unions are set to lose membership if the new system of 2663 is implemented, and some say that is the main reason why the unions have come out strongly against the proposed curriculum. A section of education stakeholders insist that the country's education system must be reformed if Kenya is to achieve Vision 2030. The implementation of the new system will cost about 340 billion shillings.
What became apparent on the last day of the National Conference on Education was a split among education stakeholders over the new proposed school curriculum. While a section of stakeholders, mainly teachers' union officials such as the Kenya National Union of Teachers, do not want the new system to be implemented, others had alternative views.
Let us all put our interests aside. We are talking about reforms, and other sectors are reforming. But the education sector, because of interests, because of petty politics, because of partisanship, we cannot make a step.
During the 3-day conference, NUT came out strongly against the new system of 2663, saying the implementation of the new curriculum will set the country back 340 billion shillings between 2012 and 2015.
This newly proposed education system requires school-going children to go through 2 years of early childhood development, 6 years of primary school, 6 years in secondary school, and at least 3 years in university. Another aspect of this new system is that secondary school will be divided into senior and junior secondary.
But teachers' unions suggest that the government should instead improve the current education system by addressing the current shortage of 80,000 teachers and the lack of proper training facilities for teachers and more schools for the growing number of pupils and students.
Our economy is so very fragile, so when we come up with very robust recommendations, we are going to hit a dead end somewhere.
Stakeholders seem angered by the fact that no one from the Ministry of Education was present at the last day of the conference where recommendations were being discussed.
I don't see the director of basic education here. I don't see the director of secondary education here. Even the quality assurance director. We are talking about quality. Are they boycotted? Where are they?
55% of the participants of the conference voted to retain the current 844 education system, while 17% supported the implementation of the new system. The rest opted to abstain from voting. Catherine Omwando, KTN Prime.
4 days since the announcement of the discovery of oil in Turkana South, and a little town, about 13 kilometers from the drilling site, is warming up to business opportunities. Though economic migration has usually been towards urban areas, the remote town of Lokichar prides itself in being the center of attraction for would-be entrepreneurs. Mercy Kandia brings us the anticipation for business of a little-known town in the county of Turkana.
A town that everyone now wants to be associated with, the recent oil discovery in a little-known area in Turkana South.
Mungu amefanya juu na chini, imemaanisha ukiwa namba 0 utakuja kwa namba 1.
Lokichar town is now warming up to business opportunities. Mohammed Mahmoud, who was born in Lokichar, has a hotel here. He has had his share of ups and downs. Now he slaughters 1 or 2 goats in a day. His business has expanded in the recent years. This is the VIP section.
Nataka labda pengine hata rais wetu akikuja tutamkaribisha akuje aketi hapa.
10 locals are now employed here compared to 3 when it started years ago.
Tulianzisha hii hoteli ikiwa ni nyumba ya matope.
In the now semi-busy town, the youth are being encouraged to start small businesses within the town. 51-year-old Lucas Amoran tries to make ends meet as a cobbler. He had traveled to Eldoret town in search of greener pastures, but this did not happen.
Nikakuta wengine naye, sio mimi peke yake ndio nilikuwa naenda huko, nikakuta wengine naye kama Somalia, Waluya, kabila yote ya Kenya yuko pande hii.
The elated residents say they want a fair share in the proceeds.
Kazi ya mkono 90% ni Turkana ndugu yangu.
As progress in the recent discovery is being made, Lokichar town too, in its own way, is making progress.
There has always been movement, especially by the youth from rural areas to urban areas in search of employment. But here in this remote area of Lokichar, it's the other way around. People moving here to seek employment and business opportunities. Masi Kandi reporting for KTN in Lokichar, Turkana South.
The next story is about Nicholas Biwott, the former influential cabinet minister. You will not see him in this story, even though he is the story.
Well, you will see his cars, his security detail, and a group of journalists who waited 2 hours at 2 exits in the National Health Insurance Fund building for him to leave private chambers where he was giving testimony to the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission.
Well, KTN's Edith Kimani brings you the details of what was a circus after the hearings, with journalists trying to catch up with a man who moves like the wind.
Nicholas Kipruno Arap Biwott, or just Nicholas Biwott if you like, is a man who's been described as a businessman, a politician and even a philanthropist. But today he showed journalists that he is also a bit of a magician.
The script was supposed to play out easily. At least that's what members of the Fourth Estate thought. Sources within the commission had informed members of the press that the former powerful cabinet minister before the commission for being adversely mentioned in atrocities and scandals that the commission has had hearings for. After the hearings, journalists were all set. In fact, just to be safe, some cameramen positioned themselves at the main entrance while others stood guard at the basement exit. Now, this is the part of the story where the waiting begins. 2 hours, reporters waited and waited and waited, and then moved to a different exit only to wait some more. Then moved back to the basement to, wait. Then there was hope. Security guards at the NHIF building appeared to be preparing for Biwott's exit, and men who looked like his security detail lined up at the exit way, and a car pulled up near the exit. Once again, the cameras were set, but the car left. Turns out it was a decoy to keep the journalists there as Biwott left through this door. Nicholas Biwott has been known to be this kind of man who very subtly evades the press. In fact, he's alleged to frequently switch cars when traveling, and he apparently never accepts drinks bought to him in restaurants. The BBC once reported that he has always refused to tell his age, and what we know to be his age of 71 is apparently just an estimation. Edith Kimani, KTN Prime.
Well, here's a man who's not shying from the media. The now public spat between Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Biwott Member of Parliament Najib Balala continues to simmer. Balala, who returned to his constituency for the first time since he was sacked, promised to soon make known the political vehicle which he will use in the coming general election. This whilst not relenting on his scathing attack on the Prime Minister's style of leadership. Our reporter Esther Kahumbi, who is in Mombasa, brings us up to speed on this developing story.
Arriving for the first time in his home turf since he was sacked from his tourism docket was MP for Mvita Najib Balala, putting a brave face just a day after Prime Minister Raila Odinga termed him as a betrayer, hence the axing.
Kama wewe mama amesema anataka talaka mara mbili, mara tatu nafanya nini? Team goal ni ile. Piga mpira kuingiza katika golini. Hapana piga mpira kuna kurudisha kwa goli yako.
Hapo awali alipokuwa ni captain wa timu ya mpira tulikuwa tukipasiana na yeye. Lakini sasa alipobadilika amewacha captain kando, anataka kuwa sasa ni mwenye mpira. Anataka kufunga bao peke yake, ndio sisi tukachukua bao tukalitia ndani.
Until his sacking, Balala served as the chair of the United Nations World Tourism Organization's Executive Council, taking the position after stiff competition between Kenya and Italy. Kenya will now lose a position to the Italian tourism minister, who will now take over from Balala.
Baada tushampa, sasa najua kuita wengine wanawake. Baada tushampa, amejua sasa kutoa talaka. Lakini hiyo talaka ya kisiasa si ya halali. Ndio maana Mwenyezi Mungu hakumjalia kwa kiongozi wa Kenya.
Balala has been very vocal about his stand on ODM politics, terming Raila as a dictator seeking to serve only his interest. Many now are waiting to see what strategy Balala will adopt to retain his grip on coast politics. Esther Kahumbi, KTN Prime in Mombasa.
Prime Minister Raila Odinga has named former Permanent Secretary James Ongwae as his chief campaign manager and head of secretariat. Also joining the Raila campaign team is regular columnist and publisher Barak Moluka, who will be the national director in charge of communications. The naming of his campaign team is a clear indication that Raila is sure his name will be on the presidential ballot paper, even though the ODM party is yet to conduct presidential nominations. Party Musalia Mudavadi, his deputy, has also been quoted saying he is sure of beating his party leader to carry the ODM mantle if the presidential race. Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka has also set up a campaign secretariat headed by former Chief of Protocol Ambassador Harry Mutuma Kathurima, with Rose Kimodo, Professor Marete Marango, Professor Wilfred Nyangema, Mudui Muriuki, Koki Muli and Donald Kipkorir as members. KANU Secretary-General Nick Salat has sharply criticized his party chairman, Uhuru Kenyatta, for cancelling the party's National Delegates Conference that was scheduled for tomorrow without giving a clear date on when the crucial meeting will be held. Salat says Uhuru's action has demoralized party members. The Secretary-General warns the Secretariat may be forced to convene a National Executive Council meeting to set up a new date for the Delegates Conference without Uhuru's input. And as Patrick Amimo reports, Salat and KANU Life member Daniel Arap Moi have expressed fear that Uhuru Kenyatta's dilly-dallying might see KANU deregistered for failure to comply with the Political Parties Act.
With the April 30th deadline for political parties to comply fast approaching, KANU, the oldest party in the country, is worried. The last meeting for KANU National Executive Council and Parliamentary Group was held in Naivasha last December. KANU members were eager to hold a special delegates conference this Friday, but the party chairman Uhuru Kenyatta has postponed the delegates meeting at the last minute. Former President and KANU Life member Daniel Moi's response on the postponement was quick, saying he cannot be silent on such a crucial matter. According to Moi, the KANU leadership is unfailing to